In China, Lando landed another podium. Checo charged back to the top three. Alonso was awesome, Hamilton was unhappy, and Verstappen's victory was one of his best ever.
He's going to win the Chinese Grand Prix for the first time in his career. Max Verstappen crosses the line to take victory in Shanghai. His 58th Formula One win, and he has destroyed the field once more. The Dutchman leads home Lando Norris. Lando Norris with his best result of the season and his 15th career podium. 2 Red Bulls on the podium thanks to Sergio Perez, who comes home for another trip to the rostrum.
Tom Clarkson here in the Shanghai paddock. It's F1 Nation's review of the Chinese Grand Prix, and with me are Mercedes reserve driver Fred Vesti and F1 tech expert Albert Fàbrega. Guys, it's great to have you with us. Can we get your reactions first of all?
Yeah, I must say, of course, a strong result from Max, but a really impressive race coming from Lando. He was really fast, and I was quite surprised he was able to keep such a gap to Sergio. And I really think his last stint was strong, so that was really impressive. It was a cool race. Of course, there was a bit of crashing going on at the safety car restart, which as a driver and Formula One in general, you don't really want to see. But in a hairpin like that, it can happen. And yeah, that was a bit crazy. But
yeah, it's been the whole weekend has been amazing. I think we have seen a lot of action from Friday to Saturday, and today it's been a strategic race where some teams were trying to want to stop, and it worked. 100% agree with Fred about McLaren. Impressive how Lando was capable to manage the tires and that set and the latest stint. And I think for them, obviously helped by the temperatures. We'll see on the next races if the temperature is higher, if they can do it again. But it's been a big step forward compared to Ferrari, for example.
Do we think it was a better race for 2 safety car periods, or do you think actually it would have been more interesting late on if there had been no safety cars?
Well, for example, Leclerc and Lando were lucky that they got the safety car opportunity and they spotted on for their strategy, and it helped a lot. But it's always adding another strategic factor that puts sometimes the strategies upside down, and it creates new question marks on the table for the teams and for the drivers. So I think it's always a good point.
Well, let's dive further into the race, starting with the dominant force in Formula One right now, Chinese Grand Prix winner Max Verstappen.
It's a great feeling, of course. You never know when you enter the weekend how it's going to go. Sprint weekend normally always a bit more chaotic, so you always want it to go really well, but then it did go really well. So then, of course, very pleased, but also the performance, I think, now in the main race, the car was, I think, an improvement compared to the sprint race even. So it just made my life a bit easier as well. A bit more, could be a little bit more consistent while driving.
Max, you say your car was an improvement from the sprint. Were there any dramas at all for you in that race?
I locked up in the second restart into 6, I think, a little bit. So I was like, that was not ideal. Then I threw a tear off away, which I think I could hear on the intake. It was flapping around, hitting my helmet. So I don't know where it ended up. And with 2 laps to go, I think I drove over a little bit of debris before turn 14. So then a little bit scary because, with all the tires, it's easy to have a puncture at high speed when you drive over carbon. That was it, I think.
Of all the wins you've had this year, from everything you're saying, do you feel this was the most dominant?
It was a good one, yeah. In terms of just also balance in the car, where, we did a good job as a team to make it even better than what it was at the start of the weekend.
So when a driver wins as much as Max, this was win number 57, would you believe it? We sometimes take his performances for granted, but he was on supreme form in Shanghai, wasn't he?
yeah, it was. Today was a very strong race, but also yesterday in the sprint race, I think really showed his pace. I think he pulled, was it 12 seconds in 10 laps or something like that, which was incredible. And one of the things that is really helping him in a long race like this is that when you have that speed advantage, you can just take care of the tires. In high speed, he can just use the tires 1% less, but over a long stint, that can really make a big difference. So yes, he is fast, the car is fast, but it's almost looking even better because he's able to take so well care of the tires.
I think it was one of his best weekends ever. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%, the most dominant. And there's always a question mark at the end of the race. Have we seen the quickest one, where Max keeping some tense on his pocket if he needs still to deploy that extra speed. I think that he is managing the tires in a way that no one can do now in Formula One. And it's not only the driver, it's the car, it's the team, how they planning the race and the whole weekend. But I think it's been, for me, the most dominant race of the year, yes.
I mean, so dominant in the race, yet he's equally dominant now in qualifying. He's the first driver since Mika Häkkinen in 1999 to take pole at the opening 5 races. And he says he's more confident over one lap in this car than he was last year. That is ominous.
Yeah, I mean, that confidence really shows, and it's something, as a driver, it's difficult to build up. Normally, it goes up and down. Your car, some weekends are stronger than others. But currently they are so strong, and Max is so strong, and it just builds and builds, and that helps him massively. So, yeah, I'm sure he's looking already ahead to the next race and see how he can do that even better.
Checo was much closer to him in Japan 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Why do you think the gap was bigger here?
Not sure. Obviously, every circuit and every track has his special characteristics, and the driver sets the car in his way. I think that Checo is much more comfortable than other years with the Red Bull. This year is most consistent. He does no mistakes, but here, obviously, Max has been more, more dominant than other races, and probably that's the increasing gap. I think that Checo has been in the same level. Surprised a little bit by Lando today, but 5 poles, as you said, but not yesterday. On the sprint, Lando took it under rain conditions, so it means that in some conditions the car and the driver are not perfect yet.
Do you know what? It was an incredible pole by Lando. Once it had been reinstated, he was 1.2 seconds faster than anybody. I mean, he has been actually on really good form, but Fred, I did want to ask you, imagine you're Checo Perez, right? When you're in a racing team and you're a driver and you've got someone like Verstappen next to you, how do you deal with that? Is the trick just to completely ignore your teammate, which is what I think Checo's doing this year, or is the trick to analyse his data and try and replicate what he's doing?
I think what has happened in the last few years is Max has been really dominant, and at some point you need to accept that's the case, and then you just need to focus and analyze all the time how can you improve. And you don't have to improve like from one weekend to another and beat Max. Maybe if you can improve a little bit each weekend, that will help. And Red Bull needs a second driver that's stable and really fast and can put the car P2 every single qualifying. And as long as Sergio is doing that, he's doing a good job. But from my side, I would say it's important that he keeps pushing towards beating Max, because that's what will keep him fast.
Well, Fred, you alluded to that final stint and the gap between Lando Norris and Checo. So let's talk about Lando. Pole for the sprint on Saturday, podium in the Grand Prix on Sunday.
I'm surprised to be sitting here today, but it's a nice surprise, of course. So we've been struggling a little bit, I'm sure everyone does, but with certain things throughout the whole season, which have always been limiting us. Probably felt similar-ish to Australia. I felt comfortable and the car felt pretty good as well. So just much better today. Things came alive today. The conditions cooled down, the wind calmed down, and both of these things, I think, played into our hands a little bit more. So a pleasant surprise, and the car felt much better, but obviously not quick enough to match the Red Bulls.
Coming into the weekend, you weren't confident. What changed?
Nothing. we were not. I don't know. I don't know. Like, what did change? We were just quicker than we thought. That's the limitations, the places we expected to struggle probably a lot more. We didn't struggle as much in. So these longer corners like turn 1 have always been a big weakness for us, and part of turn 1 was probably better than we were expecting, and like the second part was probably as we were expecting. So we're still learning about the car. It's as simple as that. This track's very different. The tarmac's quite odd. Maybe that played into our hands a bit more than we were thinking. Maybe with the old tarmac we would have struggled a bit more. So just little things, we're not making it up. We're giving our honest opinion on where we're going to be. I think if we were to go into a weekend and we knew we were going to be strong, we've said it. So more often than not, we don't feel that optimistic, because all year we've been behind Red Bull, all year we've been behind Ferrari. There's no reason for us to suddenly think we should be ahead. But Yeah, nothing really pointed to us having an amazing race today, especially the sprint race, which was our best version of events of what can go down. But things just went to plan and kind of went very smoothly from lap 1 onwards. I didn't make a mistake in turn 1 and go off. It's a good start. And got past the Aston and can just control the race.
What were you thinking in the middle of the race when the VSC came out just after you passed the pit lane entry?
There was a few F words and S words and so on. I knew it because it was obvious it was going to be a VSC, but it just didn't come out. I was saying to myself, I bet it's going to come out as soon as I go around the last corner, and it literally did. Even my engineer said it. I said it to him. Luckily, it stayed out a long time, and then it obviously went to safety car. So our strategy worked out well. I felt confident in this first stint, so I could go a very long time. If the VSC went out before I got around to the pit lane, I would have been a lot more annoyed than I am right now. But things obviously went our way for sure, because it made the Red Bulls have to stop again, and that obviously put me ahead of Checo, put the Ferrari in between us, and that probably saved me a little bit.
So Albert, how good was Norris, and how good and why was it so good, the McLaren?
Well, they said they did some changes on the car after the sprint race, something that is allowed by the rules this year, and I think it's a good idea to do that. And they set up the car in a way that they could control this degradation, mainly the thermal degradation on the rear axle, I guess, and the temperature help. But I think that this is nothing if the driver don't manage the laps and the pace in a way that he can last at the stint till the safety car appears. They get in, and then the second part of the race, it was amazing because he could control all this degradation till the end, when Checo was pushing hard to try to beat him for the second position. So yeah, good.
All the messaging we got from McLaren coming into this weekend is it's going to be hard for us here.
Yep.
These long corners, they hurt the car. Why? I mean, you've alluded to the temperatures, but why was it quick? Or do you actually think they don't know yet?
I think they were surprised. When you start the season and where the tracks weather degradation was high, like for example this one, and you fail to accomplish your targets in the first races, and then you come here, you expect that you try solutions, but you never know if it work out as it did today. So I'm pretty much sure that the lessons are there for them. They take note of that, and they will try to apply to the following races. But these cars, that the window they work is so close. And as you see, for example, on Ferrari this weekend, or Mercedes, sometimes they just go out of the window and they lose completely. When sometimes you think, okay, we got it, we understand the car, we know where we go, and we know how to play with this car to get the maximum result, the optimum result, and the performance, and then you fall down. So not easy, but it's a good step forward for them, yes.
I'm really excited about the potential of this McLaren, because if they can do what they've done here on a track that's not meant to favour them, they've got the upgrade coming for Miami.
Yep.
I feel the sky is the limit. Albert, what are you expecting from that upgrade?
No one knows. Well, they expect a lot because obviously they put a lot of effort on the wind tunnel and the production, but till the car touch the floor and they do different scans on different setups, they will know how far they can go with it. But obviously they need a car with a better efficiency on the DRS. They need a better efficiency on the car, aerodynamically talking, to have more speed and to be capable to defend and to attack on the straights. And I think that some of the upgrades are going on this way. If they accomplish the targets that they put on the table, when they write down, we need this, and this, and the car will do that, I think they will be in a position where the first target is to beat Ferrari. That I think is the first step they have ahead, because Red Bull, I think, is too far yet. It's too far.
And we are only at race 5, but too far. Even
I think so.
Even if we see them go on a run like they did in the second half of last year?
When you are miles away from where you should be, it's easy to go to the where you are P10. It's easy to go to P5, but the last 10s are very expensive. I mean, expensive not in matters of money, but it's just very difficult to achieve the last 10s and the last positions of the grid. So to reach where Red Bull is, because Red Bull is not stopping. It's not a matter where Red Bull is not upgrading the car. So I'm pretty much sure that they will be unbeatable, at least in the short term.
And it's incredible how sensitive these cars are, right? Let's look at, Oscar Piastri's race. He came home in P8, but after the little, what do we call it, mini pile up at the hairpin, and his diffuser was damaged, and that wasn't game over, but his pace just dropped away immediately.
Yeah, diffuser is creating is the part of the car that is creating more downforce on the whole car. And a car today it works as a whole, and if you destroy something on the diffuser, probably you affect the downforce, but as well probably the efficiency of the rear wing, and the whole aerodynamic structures goes completely crazy, and it's difficult to manage. If you lose downforce, you degrade more the tires, and then it becomes very difficult for him and for any driver. Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, Fred has to run off to a meeting.
Pit stop. It's a pit stop.
A quick pit stop.
Safety.
Such is the job of the reserve driver. So while he's gone, let's hear from third place man Checo Perez now. A slightly more difficult weekend for him here in China.
Once you go by the car ahead and you start fighting for, I don't know how many laps we end up fighting between Charles and myself, then it's really game over. You use so much of your tire, you put so much energy into them that they never really come back. It's where a high deck place, and I paid the price, but that was the only way I could get by Charles, because we were obviously at the same age tires, and it was really difficult to get by Charles.
It seemed that you were on the back foot throughout this Grand Prix, right from the start when Fernando Alonso got past.
Yeah, I obviously was on the inside of Max and had to brake earlier. And Fernando was on the outside. My start wasn't that good, so yeah, that meant that I lost a place to Fernando. And again, I had to fight quite hard to get by him. Probably used a little bit too much my tires, and that put me definitely in the back foot for the first stint. So yeah, it wasn't a straightforward race. But I also feel like we went in the opposite way with the changes we made from the sprint event into the race. I felt like we took a little bit of a back step.
Except you weren't that happy with the performance of the car in the sprint either.
Well, I think I was just basically fighting, with in the pack. Once you are in the pack, it's so hard to get a read from what the balance actually does. When you have 2-3 cars ahead of you, you have a lot less load in your car, so it's really hard to know where your balance is at. It's just the limitations that I had today that probably it's something we got to review the directions we've taken to see what we could have done better.
How disappointed will Checo be after that race?
Not that much, I would say, because obviously the safety cars didn't play on his side this weekend, and it didn't pay off the two stops strategy compared to Lando's ones. But what I like to say about Checo this year, or what I feel, is that he's not making any mistake. And if we see last seasons with Red Bull, he was often doing mistakes that cost him a lot of points and a lot of podiums, not only on the quali, also on the race. So I think this year he find the consistency. He's more confident with the car, I would say, and he has this momentum where he's closer to Max, not to beat him yet. Not like probably the start of last year. And when you have a number one of Max and in momentum that he's winning 3 titles in a row, he's dominating the first 5 races in a way that he has done this. But the one that was won by Carlos Sainz. I think that one of the important things is the feeling that he has with his teammate. And I'm pretty much sure that Max now is very comfortable with working with Checo. So why, if you are Red Bull, should change this momentum? Having a driver that is doing not mistakes, is scoring a lot of points for the team, is on the podium almost every race but Australia, and is performing well with the car, and is having a good feeling and a good feedback to the team. I shouldn't change it for any reason.
Let's move on to Ferrari now. 4th and 5th. Leclerc ahead of Sainz this time.
Yep.
They were slower than McLaren here, having been quicker than them in Japan. Did that surprise you?
Yes, and I think it's consequence of the changes they did on the car. They were trying and exploring new setups on the car, and they expected to work, and it didn't. As in Japan, on the qualifying they were slower, but they were expecting to have better pace during the race, managing the tires, but it didn't happen here. So.
I thought they looked really quick in the sprint over 19 laps.
Yep.
So I was expecting more from them in the Grand Prix itself, but we never saw it. It's like they never fired up, did they?
No, I was expecting the same, like in Japan. We said Japan, Ferrari is slower on the qualifying, but then on the race they deploy a fantastic pace and they could achieve that podium with Carlos on the fourth position with Charles. But here there was no chance. Even during the free practice and the qualifying, there was not that point where you go out on the track and you achieve the time easy. So they had to work on the car. They had to be too much laps on outside to achieve the time, and it was a really difficult weekend for them. I think a lot of question marks on the back to Maranello.
Right, lots of question marks, but we haven't had you on the show so far this year, so I would love to get your thoughts on the Ferrari we're seeing now versus the one we saw at the end of last year, because there have been huge improvements again, right?
Yes.
Where do you see the main
tire
improvement?
management.
Yeah.
Last year they were suffering a lot. They had a car that was so quick on the qualifying. They achieved a lot of targets and good results during the qualifying, but then they destroyed the tires during the race. And I think that the situation has changed a lot. They work very well on managing the temperature of the tires. That is not only a matter of a driver, only a suspension. There is a lot of aerodynamic work behind this with the flow that is going inside the rim and around the wheel. And I think that gives to them a good point to control the race pace and to play with the strategies, A, B, C, D, but in a manner where you control yourself. It's not a matter of, okay, we have to go into the garage again and again and again, as today they did with Charles stopping once.
Less of a lottery now.
Yes.
But can we also get your thoughts?
It's easier. When the car performs that well, it's easier to play with the strategies.
Formula One is so much easier with a quick car, isn't it?
Yes.
I
And
agree.
everyone is a good engineer there.
What about Carlos Sainz? Have you been surprised by the apparent step up we've seen from him?
Yes, but we saw at the end of the last year, second part of the season, we saw some momentum of Carlos where he's starting to show strong confidence. I think that he stepped up in a point where he's really confident on himself, and the fact that Ferrari didn't resign him and announce Hamilton has give him that little extra energy to start the weekends in a very powerful mode. It's not a matter of revenge. It's not a matter of to pay out something that a bill that is pending. It's a matter of belief in himself, and he's doing very well. Obviously, he's more comfortable with the car than Charles, and he's showing that. But situations where, for example, yesterday on the free practice on the qualifying 2, on the Q2, when he went off on the straight almost crashing, or he crashed the car, but it was nothing at the end. And on the following lap, when he put the new tires, he achieved a good time to go to Q3. So it means that he believes in himself. He's building his own confidence from the Friday up to the Sunday.
Imagine for a moment that you are managing Carlos Sainz.
I'm Carlos Oñoro now. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Give me the glasses.
Where would you put him next year? Reportedly, Audi have made him a good offer.
Yes.
Red Bull is still an option, potentially. Where'd you go? What would you do with him?
I will try to give him a seat where he can continue fighting for the targets that he's fighting now, obviously. And there is not many free seats right now. I wouldn't try to keep him on the top 5 teams on the grid. Obviously, he cannot stay in Ferrari. It looks like Aston Martin, after Alonso resigned, we don't know Stroll, but looks like he's gonna stay like this. So McLaren is blocked with Norris and Piastri. So there is only 2 slots there. That is not being confirmed yet. That is Red Bull and Mercedes. If I was his manager, I will push as much as I can to try to get one of that seats, because 2025 is going to be very similar to 24, and 26 is the target. We have to think about 26.
Albert, there are 2 potential roadblocks, aren't they? At Red Bull, the roadblock is Checo Perez, who's performing well, and I think at Mercedes the potential.
Well, we don't know Max yet.
True.
We don't know Max yet.
All right. That's the one potential roadblock.
Yes.
Then you go to Mercedes, right?
Yes.
Where there is this Formula 2 driver, Kimi Antonelli.
Yep.
Huge talent.
Yeah.
And even if he doesn't get plugged into the Mercedes in 2025, Toto Wolff's going to want him in there soon, and I'm sure Carlos isn't going to accept going to Mercedes on a one-year deal.
Yep, agree.
So that is an avenue that might close on him as well. And then where do you go? It's a really difficult.
It's a really difficult
puzzle, isn't
because
it?
any single discussion you are having with the team or with the driver, you must think on 2026 rather than 25. 25 it can be a transition. Everyone is happy with that, but the following stage of Formula One, the following chapter is 2026, and there is a big important change of regulations in chassis, but also in the engine side, on the power unit side. So everyone wants to be on the right place, on the right moment in 2026, and no one knows which that will be. But if I have to guess, I will put my money on the teams that are right now dominating the Formula One.
So you think Red Bull powertrains will get the job done in their first season competing in Formula One?
You know what? I have heard, I'm always asking to everyone, and I don't know who's telling the truth or not. Or maybe they are telling the truth, but the information is not accurate, I would say. But I've heard both things. I've heard people saying, well, they are behind the targets. And I've heard people saying me, I know really well what they are doing there, and they are on the targets. And I heard the same thing on the other brands. So I don't know. There's still a lot of time. There's still 1 year and a half till we see that the engine's running on a car.
Sorry to interrupt, but is that a long time in the power unit world? Is 18 months a long time?
It's not. If you are behind the targets, you have to run more than the others, and they are limited for the budget, for the regulation. So it's more difficult than other times where you have, as much money as you can, or you can spend as much as you can. But everyone is talking that some constructors are behind the targets or are slower, let's say, on the development than others. But likely we will not see that till 2026.
And if you were a betting man, where would you put your €10? Carlos Sainz to...
Can I split?
Each way bet.
Give me that fun.
Carlos Sainz to Audi, do you think that is the most likely thing, even if it's not his first preference?
For me, Audi is a good option for the future, but I think that it will be difficult for them. Sauber is a team that right now is still fighting to be in Q3, so there's still a lot of development to go on the chassis to be fighting with teams like Red Bull or like the ones that are dominating right now the Formula One, and then Audi has to start the project in Formula One. We know that Audi has a lot of heritage in Formula One, a lot of success in different categories of motorsport. They will succeed in Formula One, but not sure if at the beginning. So for a driver that is right now like Carlos, that he's been the only driver who has won a race, but the Red Bull guys last 25 or 6 races, you should try to, if you have the chance, to go to a team that is fighting already for the podiums, even next year, but thinking also in 2026.
All right, that's one of the Spaniards on the grid.
Yep.
Let's talk about the other one now, Fernando Alonso.
Not Pedro de la Rosa.
No, yes. Oh, Pedro, friend of the show, of course. Yes. First of all, I thought it got pretty spicy between the two Spaniards in the sprint. So did the stewards, because they ended up giving Fernando Alonso 3 penalty points.
Yep.
Tell us about their relationship, first of all. Is there a lot of competition between them because they're the same nationality, or is it easy between them?
Well, Spain in terms of Formula One is not England, where you have a lot of drivers going in and out of Formula One for a long time. So we are lucky to have these 2 drivers right now in Formula One, and we have been lucky to have Fernando for such 20 years already in Formula One, achieving that amazing result, and he still fighting, now in Formula One. And obviously, when you have a driver on track that is from your nationality, there is always a plus where you want to beat him. But I think that they respect themselves a lot inside the track, both. And I wouldn't say that what we saw yesterday in the sprint, it is related to the nationality. They were always fighting on track, wherever is the driver is fighting with. And what it happened, I think that the penalty was not fair. We are pushing the sprint races to be in Formula One, and we are pushing the drivers to compete and to be aggressive during the sprint races. And maybe they should be a little bit more flexible on these situations where the two drivers were fighting for a position.
Yeah, it was a good battle, but Fernando once again just proving what an intelligent racer he is, right? We saw it in Japan. In fact, we see it most races, don't we? He's just so good.
Indeed.
So I was surprised, Albert, in this race that he went for the soft tyre, because it's a discussion, right? The engineers and all the strategy team at Aston Martin will have obviously crunched the numbers, and they'll have their reasons for going for that soft tyre in the race. But from my vantage point, I couldn't understand it. What do you think?
I will not be the one to...
Am I being really unfair?
No. Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge, you're behind what the teams are deciding, and it's very easy from the outside point of view say, okay, we want to stop that, we were better, or you put the tire in there.
Strategist, that's me.
Yeah, I would say that we control only 10% of the information that the team are managing in a race weekend, and there is other factors here. Obviously, the tarmac. What had happened with the tarmac? No one knew what tarmac we had here. It was the first sprint, so they decided to go on a way to save one soft tire. That has been a surprise. In Japan, they started the race with the softs.
It's true.
That no one
and
could,
the restart.
And the restart
Japan.
as well.
Yeah, they were convinced by it.
Before the start of the weekend, no one could put any single pence or pound in a table saying you're going to start the race in a soft tire. And that they kept that strategy here. Yesterday with Russell, when they put George Russell, they put they fit the soft tire on the sprint, and it worked not that bad. So I was expecting them to fit that tire, but it didn't work as an optimal, let's say, pace for them. And that last pit stop it make them lose some time on track.
So Alonso qualifies P3 for both the sprint
amazing lap.
Well, 2 amazing laps, and for the Grand Prix as well. Yet the pace drops away in the race. What is your understanding of why that happens in the race?
I would say that they are the Ferrari of last year. It's difficult with these cars when you set up them and you try to get the optimum performance of the car, and sometimes you get a car where it's so extremely quick on one lap situation, but then on the race, the tire degradation it affects a lot the performance. So I'm pretty much sure they are doing trying to get lesson on the first races, trying to get upgrades for the following to try to sort it out. There will be races where the degradation is not that, it doesn't have the impact of this race, or for example last weekend in Japan or Australia, for example, and they will get better results. So when they put all together, I think they will be more competitive, and hopefully they will be fighting for
what kind of
podium. Track
are you talking about where there'll be less degradation? Where can we get excited about Aston Martin?
Well, let's see because there is, if you analyze the data, you see, for example, that the Ferrari was so strong on the first 3 or 4 races with low speed corners. You'd say, okay, they will be so strong in circuits like Monaco or maybe Singapore or I don't know, maybe in some other circuits. But then this has changed here because the teams are experimenting with the setups and they're looking for new ways to find the optimal race. So why not? They could be quick here on these situations, on these tracks. Here we have seen Aston Martin as well deploying a good top speed that we haven't seen on the first races. Alonso was capable to defend well, but obviously they were lacking of downforce. So it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say. Last year we say Aston Martin will be in a situation to win in Monaco, almost, and then Singapore, and they weren't. So
I'm getting flashbacks of Q3 in Monaco last year. Wasn't it amazing when Max was using his car as a pinball and Fernando was so close? But
the last sector was amazing.
He must have loved that last stint of this Chinese Grand Prix as well, when he had better tyres than the people in front of him, and that amazing save at turn 16, the last corner.
Crazy, yeah? And opening the DRS immediately, yes?
Yes!
That's amazing. That's only a few drivers can do
I
this
really
kind of
hope
things.
he walks past us, because I want to ask him about that if he does.
Yeah.
Do you think Aston Martin can win a race?
It's going to be difficult, as it is. We have to be clear right now in terms of race pace. Aston Martin is the fourth or fifth team, maybe together close to Mercedes. That's a fact. This is data. We cannot think that with this data you can win a race. But in Formula One everything can happen. It can happen that they unlock the potential of the car and they can sacrifice a little bit of pace of the qualifying and convert it in a better race pace. There will be options, and obviously they have one asset that no other team has, that is Fernando Alonso. And when you have Fernando Alonso behind the wheel, and there is a situation where everything is upside down, and there is a difficult situation where you have to put your best on it. He is a master, when it's raining, when there is opportunities on track, when there is a chaos, there is always Fernando there to exploit and to explode his best skills on the car, because he is a master on a race.
Now, I'm delighted to say that Fred has been able to rejoin us at a perfect moment, because let's talk about Mercedes now. He led the sprint on Saturday, but it was an unhappy Sunday for Lewis Hamilton.
Car's just sliding around everywhere. It's just like something's broken. It's probably just his balance. It's really bad. Okay, copy.
Well, Lewis, judging by team radio, it sounded like balance was quite hard to come by today. Did you enjoy the race, at least going from where you were on the grid to points finish?
Not particularly. I mean, I was pretty slow. But I mean, the few battles I had was okay. But I mean, I was not particularly quick today.
How would you sum up his weekend, Fred?
I think in many ways a bit up and down, a bit frustrating, because the sprint race was optimistic. He was leading. He finished second eventually. But then, the qualifying was tough for him. Lock up in turn 14. Definitely missed out on going into Q2. And I would say he had the pace to be actually in Q3. So it was a big mistake on time. And unfortunately that put him on the back of the grid. And then in Sunday's race, he got to P9, but definitely not happy with the car, and it just highlights it needs to improve to get more performance out of it.
Fred, for a young guy like you with the bulk of your career ahead of you, what are you learning when you listen to Lewis Hamilton in the debriefs, when you watch him on the TV?
It's great to watch when the team is winning, doing pole position and all of that. But there is also a lot to learn when it's not happening. And for me as a reserve driver to be here on these weekends where they're discussing the car setup, they're discussing how they're driving the car and how it should be in the future, that's actually really good learning for me. But obviously it's frustrating for the team to be chasing a lot of lap time, and hopefully can really improve in the next few weeks.
You did a couple of FP1s at the end of last year, so you know what that car felt like. Are the comments the same this year? Because there is a completely different philosophy, we're told, with this car, but are the issues the same?
I wouldn't say they're exactly the same as last year. Obviously, by fixing one problem, you might introduce another one. It can happen, and I'm not entirely sure if that's what's happened, but for sure it's a problem with the car and it needs to improve. And both the race team and also the drivers are chasing that lap time. That's why a mistake like Lewis made in quali, that happens when the car is not fast enough, because you need to overdrive it. You need to try to squeeze everything out of it to maximize the lap, and that can be a problem for a driver.
Were you disappointed that the soft tyre at the start of the race didn't work better for him?
Yeah, I was so excited when he started on the soft. I thought
we were going to see a real charge.
Exactly,
right?
Like just flying through the field. But no, it didn't really happen. The problem with this track and tires are they're overheating in traffic. So it's actually a bit of an issue when you're behind people, because you try to overtake, then you slide the rear tires, and they overheat. You lose a lot of grip. You can lose probably a second a lap if you overheat the rear tires. And that's what happened to Lewis. So a shame they were not as powerful as we had hoped. But in the end he actually still ended in the points, which was good.
Which was good, as did George Russell in P6. I thought we saw some heroic defence by George in the middle of the race. Do you remember? I think it was Carlos behind him, and he was not letting him pass.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the mentality you need as a driver when you're fighting for P1 or P6. It's important to show that you are willing to fight for points, and as a team, that's really what you want to see from your driver as well.
All right, look, Fred, I know you've got to go to the airport. Final one from me is, what is the mood inside Mercedes now? Because I felt we came into this year, there was a lot of hope, and yet there are still these little issues. We see little moments where it shines, but actually the performance still isn't there.
Yeah, I think the team is determined to go back to the glory days where they were P1 in quali, P1 in race, and dominating the field. But I think everyone recognized that it takes a lot of work as well. I'm a reserve and sim driver. I know how much work we need to put in, and I feel that as well. The engineers feel that, and everyone at the factory. Of course, it's tough when you have high expectations and the car is not delivering, but at the same time, the team is united, and we are ready to work really, really hard to see upgrades coming this year, but also looking ahead.
All right, Fred, many thanks for your inputs. It's been great to chat. Travel safe. When are you next back in a racing car?
Next is in 30 hours or something. I'm headed straight to France to drive a race car, so I'm quite excited.
Okay, a bit of jet lag?
Yes, definitely. A lot of jet lag.
Look, Fred, thanks. Travel safe. Great to have you on the show. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Look, Albert, on the topic of Mercedes.
Yep.
You know, Fred talked about overheating the tyres. Where do they go? What do they do to improve? And do you think the scope is there in that car to challenge, well, Ferrari and McLaren at least?
Difficult for basically because I think that this car not as much as the 6.0 versions of the modern car, but yeah, still a lot of question marks that it looks like they don't control where to get the optimum behavior and the optimum performance of the car. There's situations we have seen free practice or qualifying where the car is so quick, where they thought probably that they were on the right way to optimize the performance, but then suddenly that performance dropped off completely and they were completely lost, and that means that the window is so tight, is so narrow, and to be there in that window in the different situations and especially with the nature of these cars is very difficult for them. It's not an easy situation, definitely. Of a car that has been winning in the way that Mercedes have been winning the hybrid era, to be in a situation where 1 year, second year and a third year and you don't achieve to be closer to the other contenders, must be so difficult.
Back to the driver silly season.
Yep.
Do you think Max Verstappen will be in a Mercedes in 2025?
I don't know, but if would be Max Verstappen, I wouldn't leave a car that is a winning car.
That's the racing driver in you. But it was interesting, actually, Albert, when you and I met up just before we started recording.
Yep.
Toto, Wolff, and Helmut Marko, long discussion.
Yes, with Checo.
With Checo was there as well, actually. Yeah. Just to muddy the waters a bit.
There is a chess game now playing on the table with a lot of factors and a lot of drivers and a lot of actors involved. But if I would be Max Verstappen, I wouldn't leave a seat of a car that I guess in 2025 is going to be the winning car as well.
I think he knows that. There's nothing in his body language or anything that comes out of his mouth that makes me think he's about to leave Red Bull.
And I think
here, he was saying, I am happier in this car than I was last year.
If you do me the same question about 2026, that I'm not sure. I will not put any money. But for me, 2025, Max will stay. He knows how difficult it is to win a championship, and he's in a winning team with a winning car and in a winning momentum. Why would you change that? Moving to a team that, like today, is just fighting for the 5th or 6th position.
Look, one other guy I wanted to ask you about was Nico Hülkenberg and Haas, right? Incredible to see them back in the points. Yep. Hulk P10, good in quali, feisty in the race.
And I'm very happy to see the small teams achieving results like being in quali in the Q3 and then achieving the amazing result for them that is being the points. And it was a very difficult moment the end of the last year. You remember when they brought that last upgrade and they had to split upgrade on one car in one way on the other because they didn't understand anything what's going on the car, or not anything, but a lot of things that were going on the cars, and the drivers were happy or not. So when you saw that, and then they changed the team principle, I thought, it's going to be a very tough season for them. And yeah, completely different situation now, and they did good races. They adding points to the standings, and very happy to see a small team that has been in a difficult situation to achieve that target. Very happy.
And they've transformed the tyre issues they had last year, haven't they? So it's really positive. And what can they do?
Same as Ferrari.
Yes, exactly.
The big brother. The big brother.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point, Albert. Now, it's been brilliant to be back in China for the first time in 5 years. The atmosphere has been fantastic, and a lot of it's down to that man, Zhou Guanyu.
Oh, that's going to be a look to the hairpin for Zhou Guanyu, and the home favourite gets ahead. Sargent can't fight back there. A crowd-pleasing move for the young Chinese driver.
Great event. This is dream to be here as a kid. So thanks for all the Chinese fans here and also back home watching TV, and thank you to my team, all you guys. Let's keep working.
Well, Joe, all weekend you've answered questions. What's it like to race at your home Grand Prix? And yet you had that moment on the grid at the end of the race, and it just seemed to get you right in the ticker. Where did it hit you, the emotion at that point?
Honestly, the whole crowd, as much as I say I want to focus, treat this as a normal race weekend, but then when you see the crowd from Friday, they are all packed on the ground, standing every stage, and then every time you go out from garage, they are cheering on the grid. So all this is just get me, and also this journey, to get here. I'm just super proud and honored to be finally having the first Chinese driver to complete in the Chinese Grand Prix after 20 years. So emotional, of course. That's a very special moment for me.
With me, Chinese journalist Frankie Mao. Frankie, the atmosphere this weekend has been better than ever, I would say. Would you agree?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Tom. It's the race I could literally say I've been waiting for 5 years, because I still remember in 2019, the 1000th Grand Prix, it was a very mega one. We waited for another one, now 5 years, finally we did it. Well, and just because Formula One, everybody just so hyped a lot to come into race, and we have Zhou Guanyu as the first ever Chinese race driver in China, his hometown in Shanghai, to race in front of all the Chinese fans. So it's a very touching moment for me, for my own career, I can say that.
Yeah. And it's a sellout, am I right?
Yes, I understand, because it's the ticket started very early in January, and the first hour, it was sold out. I got so many messages. Come on, how can we get the tickets? I say, I'm sorry, it's sold out.
Joe actually said recently that his grandstand sold out in 4 minutes.
Yeah, because his grandstand is right in front of the Kicksauber garage, so you can see all the fans, they want just to cheer for their local hero, because 70 years in Formula One, it's only Zhou is the first Chinese driver race in Chinese Grand Prix.
Well, how much of it is down to Zhou, this passion for Formula One there is now in China?
It's very important for Chinese in any sport. When you have a local hero to cheer up, it's like Yao Ming went to NBA. The basketball is definitely so huge at the time. It's still very huge now. And the Formula One, we watched Formula One for so many years, but when you have really your compatriot driver, you can cheer up. That's one of the reasons you just stay up all night to watch him race. And finally, he came back to Shanghai. Because he never raced in the track before, but when he moved to the UK very young, at 12. Now the first race he coming here, and you just see people can come back to cheer his name and want to have a selfie with him.
You say that the fan base really respects and follows him. Is there another Zhou coming through in the junior formulas?
Well, I must say very honestly, at the moment, there are some couple of young drivers in very junior category, but we still need to wait to see how far they could go, because everyone understands to climb the ladder of single seater, it's so difficult. That's why make Zhou so phenomenal, but you need all the dedication, all the passion, and all the right support with him, and go every step on the right way to make where he is now.
It's been fantastic to be here this weekend. The noise from the crowd, the atmosphere. It's great to be back in this paddock as well.
It is 5 years. It's look just like yesterday in some way, but it's still very long. Then you can see how the general growth of Formula One in China. We know that COVID is a very difficult time, but everyone watched the Formula One at home and really see how the racing goes. And when Zhou really raced his own game, and now he is in Formula One, everybody just so excited to see it.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. And Frankie, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you again, Tom.
So, Albert, like Frankie, I've been blown away by it this weekend.
Yeah. I have the same feeling. Not only because Zhou and his achievements in Formula One, also because the stands were full, but were full of people excited of Formula One, and they enjoyed the race. And that's, I think, the most positive thing, that now they were here to see the race and follow their drivers, and to cheer them to achieve the results. So I think there's been a big step up in terms of Formula One in China. I've had a long relationship with China in my career. You remember Ma Qinghua, the Chinese driver?
When he did FP1 here.
I was managing him when he came here.
What year was
to
that?
race with Caterham. He did. I was his coach in HRT when he makes his debut in Formula One, and then I managed him to reach Caterham and do the free practice one here in China with Caterham, that he did very well. So I think it's been a big step forward and positive for Formula One and for China.
Did you see there was one T-shirt someone was wearing, and it said,
"We love you, Tom Clarkson."
Yeah. It said Sauber pit stop scrutineer, because of course they have had issues with their pit stops this year. Not here, actually. One of the things they've done since Japan is that they took part in the 2-day Pirelli test, and they were able to practice some pit stops there. Good. And I felt that was certainly better. What about the pace of the car? Because both cars did well in the sprint qualifying, but that was in the wet.
Yep.
Whereas in the dry, Valtteri was P10. Do you feel they're starting to unlock a bit of potential in that car?
Definitely. And I would say that was Australia. If it was not because of the pit stop problem, Valtteri was in a situation where he could fight for the points. So yeah, they have lights in that tunnel. Let's say they have moments where they have the pace. They have momentums where they can be in that couple of positions where they can fight for the points. But yeah, they need some consistency, not only on the pit stops, also on the car, a little bit more of a speed to think that they can be fighting there. But doing steps forward. I think that by the mid of the season they will be much stronger than we have seen till now.
What about Zhou? Do you feel he deserves to stay at Sauber next year?
I don't know. It's not only because of. He's in Formula One because he's a good driver, and he's proving that. This year he's been in some situations quicker than Valtteri Bottas, and Valtteri Bottas is a race winner, so he has a lot of experience. Not easy to beat him in a Formula One. So he needs to prove that he can continue working together with the team. There is obviously a factor that we cannot miss. That is, he's from China. China is important for the Formula One, also for Sauber. So if the situation it shows that he can prove the skills on the car and keep showing progression, being quicker and quicker and more consistent, and obviously been having a good support from China, why not he can continue in Sauber on the future? We'll see.
Team Sainz.
He was putting me in a situation where he said, if you're managing Carlos Sainz, I said, well, I'm going to be Carlos Oñoro. We have Carlos Oñoro here now.
Tom, don't speak to Albert. He has no clue what he's talking about.
Hang on, while I've got you. Come here. No, you're running. Don't run. You can't join the show.
You can ask the same question to me now. Say to him.
If you were managing Carlos Sainz, you do. Hang on. Right, you're the right man. Look, how many balls have you got in the air at the minute?
A few. let's say it's an interesting period of time at the moment. The driver market has been all over the place lately, and I think we will see some movements in the upcoming weeks, but for the moment the juggling continues.
Do you think will we hear anything before Miami?
No. You can sleep well between China and Miami, don't worry. There will be no big news, at least coming from us, for sure not. We're still playing the game, so we'll see.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Travel safe, Carlos. Still playing the game. It's a game of musical chairs,
it's
isn't
gonna
it?
take time, yeah. Everyone is using the time on his side, so we'll see.
So, look, final thoughts.
Yep.
We've discussed all the main contenders here in China. Disappointments for VCARB, double retirement there.
But there was some smiles there to see Daniel having the performance back with the new chassis. Not sure if this is the new chassis or
Come on,
only.
you know, you've worked inside Formula One teams.
Yes.
How much difference does a chassis make? I heard Alan Permain, the sporting director,
It shouldn't be a difference.
Well, he just said it's a lump. I'm quoting Alan Permain now. It's a lump of carbon fibre. I don't believe it makes any difference. Is what Alan says.
But sometimes it's in the head of the driver.
Okay. So it's
Sometimes
all
the drivers
psychological.
need something like this because they are thinking that the chassis is not giving the performance that is required from it, and they need a change of chassis, and they enter in a way that nothing is right till the chassis is new arrive. And when the chassis is new arrive, they unlock this performance again. So there is I don't know the chassis, so I cannot say if there is any difference.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and tell you, yes, the chassis could be a factor, but also is there a factor that Daniel's always gone well here? He won here back in 2018.
Agree.
You know, and Yuki had never been here before, so he was slightly playing catch up as well.
Probably. That's another factor. We will see on the following races. So I don't have the answer for this. We will have to see on the following races if Yuki, we will have the Yuki that was dominant on the first races to Daniel, or we will see the Daniel that he was quicker than the Japanese. I was very impressed by Yuki on the first races, yes. Not also in Japan. Also on the first 3 races, he was quicker. So good.
Ocon drove a good race.
Yes.
Do you feel
Close to the
Alpine
points.
have they taken a step forward?
Well, they had the new chassis here, lighter, and they have a spare chassis now. So if they crash, and the upgrades arrived. New floor, only for one car. So it was good to see that there is a step forward for them, and that there's still some things to come for the following races. They can start now playing with the ballast on the car that is not been possible for the first races because they were overweight. And from here we will see a different. I hope that we will see a different Alpine, not that team that was always on Q1 and with no options to achieve points. Today they were close to it. So happy to see that the hard work that are going on in Aston is paying off.
So the top 10 look like this. Max Verstappen took win number 57 of his career and his first here in China. Lando Norris was second, the 15th podium of his career. When is that first win going to happen for Lando? And Sergio Perez rounded out the podium in third place. Next came the Ferraris, Charles Leclerc in fourth, Carlos Sainz in fifth, with George Russell in sixth, Fernando Alonso in seventh, then the wounded car of Oscar Piastri in eighth, Lewis Hamilton ninth, and Nico Hülkenberg in 10th. In the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen has extended his lead. He's got 110 points, 25 ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez. Charles Leclerc is third on 76 points, just 7 ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz. Lando Norris is fifth on 58, 20 points ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri. George Russell is 7th, Fernando Alonso 8th, Lewis Hamilton 9th, and Lance Stroll 10th. In the Constructors' Championship, it is all about Red Bull. They're out front on 195 points, with Ferrari second, 44 points further back. McLaren are still third on 96 points, with Mercedes fourth on 52. Then come Aston Martin in fifth on 40 points. And then there's a big gap back to VCARB, who are sixth with just 7 points. Haas are seventh on 5 points, and then Williams, Alpine and Sauber have yet to score. Albert, it's been fab to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. We always end with driver of the day. Lando Norris won the vote on the TV.
I cannot say anyone else that Lando today. Nico drove amazingly well this weekend, but this momentum with the safety car. But Max, again, I know, but it's so difficult to see a driver not doing any single mistakes in a whole weekend like this. So, yeah, I would say Lando. Lando has been fantastic.
Lando has been fantastic.
But yesterday, sprint start.
Going back to the sprint with Lando, I asked him in the press conference, do you feel Lewis hung you out there? And he said no. I thought Lewis outwitted him, outraced him there in that battle to turn one. And Lando will have learned, he will have clocked. But did you feel that
Well, everyone is taking, the maximum of his opportunities. You're not racing alone. So if you know that someone can try this move, as today Alonso to his Checo, and it worked, he's taking the opportunity. And for me, it was mainly a mistake of Lando there. So, the track was dirty outside of the race line, and moving on that way is always a risk. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes it doesn't work. So it didn't work yesterday.
Albert, I'm going to agree with you. You can't really look anywhere else other than Lando Norris. He's been absolutely stunning today. I will throw the name Fernando Alonso out there because I think he's been just consistently strong. But in a difficult car with tyre deg problems, he's done another brilliant job. But Lando Norris gets the vote from both of us. Well, thank you, Albert, very much for your time. It's been great to talk through it all.
My pleasure.
Love to have you on again another time. Thank you to Fred, who is probably by now at the airport on a plane on his way home.
In a car in 30 hours. Amazing. Huh?
Yeah. He's doing a lot of sports car racing. I think he's got a Formula E test coming up as well later in the year. But Fred, thank you very much for your insight as well. Quick reminder about F1 Beyond the Grid. We were talking about Zhou Guanyu earlier. That episode is available. It's last Wednesday's episode. It's on the YouTube channel and, of course, on your podcast app. And coming up this week, I had a very revealing chat with Stoffel van Dorn, the Aston Martin reserve driver, who previously raced at McLaren with Fernando Alonso. You can hear that from Wednesday. Next up for F1 Nation, we're off to Miami. Join us next Monday for our preview of the first US race of the season. But thank you very much for listening. F1 Nation is produced by Formula One and Audio Boom Studios.